The legal clash between former President Donald J. Trump and writer E. Jean Carroll has reached the U.S. Supreme Court, drawing the attention of legal experts, political analysts, and everyday Americans alike. This is not just another court case, it's a dramatic confrontation that has captured headlines and sparked heated debates across the country. Marking a pivotal moment in a case that's gripped the nation, the proceedings have become a focal point for conversations about justice, power, and accountability. The story has unfolded in living rooms, workplaces, and on social media feeds, with millions following every new development. Trump, found liable for sexual abuse and defamation, now seeks to overturn a costly verdict that threatens both his finances and legacy. The stakes are enormous, not only for Trump personally but for the broader question of how the legal system treats powerful public figures. His legal team frames this as a fight against a biased system, energizing his supporters and deepening political divides. For many, the case has become a symbol of the ongoing struggle over truth, justice, and the influence of politics in the courts. For Carroll, the Supreme Court represents the final step in her pursuit of vindication after years of public scrutiny. Her determination has inspired supporters and drawn attention to the challenges faced by those who come forward with allegations against powerful individuals. The justices, 3 of whom were appointed by Trump, must now decide whether to review a case that tests the boundaries of law, politics, and public accountability. Their deliberations will be watched closely, as the outcome could have far-reaching implications for future cases involving public figures. Their decision will be scrutinized for both legal reasoning and perceived fairness, with commentators and citizens alike weighing in on what justice should look like in such a high-profile dispute. The outcome could set a precedent for how public figures are held accountable in civil courts, shaping the legal landscape for years to come, and influencing how similar cases are handled in the future. As the nation waits, the Supreme Court's next move will not only determine the fate of this case, but also send a powerful message about the role of justice in American society. The case began with Carroll's 2019 memoir, a book that would soon ignite a national conversation. In her memoir, Carroll bravely recounted her experiences, using her platform to share a story that had remained untold for decades. Within its pages, she accused Donald Trump of a 1996 sexual assault at the iconic Bergdorf Goodman department store in Manhattan, a claim that would reverberate through the media and the public consciousness. Trump responded forcefully, denying ever meeting Carroll and dismissing her story as a complete fabrication. His public denials and repeated attacks on Carroll's credibility set the stage for a high-stakes civil trial, drawing intense scrutiny from both supporters and critics. In May 2023, a federal jury in New York listened intently as Carroll delivered detailed emotional testimony about the alleged assault and its aftermath, describing the impact it had on her life and career. The jury also heard from 2 other women who alleged similar misconduct by Trump, painting a broader picture of the accusations against him and lending weight to Carroll's claims. Notably, Trump chose not to attend the trial in person, instead relying on his videotape deposition as his primary defense. His absence in the courtroom was a point of discussion among legal experts and the public alike. After careful deliberation, the jury found Trump liable for sexual abuse, not rape, and for defamation, awarding Carroll $5 million in damages. The verdict was delivered in a packed courtroom, with the world watching. This civil verdict was a landmark moment, signaling that even powerful figures could be held accountable for their actions, even decades after the alleged events took place. The decision sent shockwaves through political and legal circles. For Carroll, the verdict was more than just a legal victory. It was validation of her story and her courage to come forward, despite years of public scrutiny and personal attacks. For Trump, it represented a major blow to his reputation and legal standing, one he immediately vowed to fight through appeals and public statements. The verdict became the foundation for a series of further legal battles and appeals, ensuring that the case would remain in the headlines and continue to shape public discourse. The outcome of the case reverberated far beyond the courtroom, fueling a national debate about accountability, power, and the ability of survivors to seek justice. The stage was set for a prolonged and highly publicized legal war, with high stakes for both parties and implications that would echo for years to come. After the $5 million verdict, Trump's legal team launched a vigorous appeal, arguing the trial was unfair and the damages excessive. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the verdict, finding the trial fair and the damages justified. Trump's request for a rehearing by the full court was denied, exhausting his options at that level. With lower courts rejecting his arguments, Trump's only path left was the Supreme Court. On November 10, 2025, his team filed a petition asking the justices to review the case. The Supreme Court hears only a tiny fraction of petitions, making this a high-risk, high-reward move. The fate of the Carroll verdict now rests with the nation's highest court. The legal journey has reached its most consequential stage. Trump's Supreme Court petition attacks the trial's fairness, focusing on Judge Kaplan's decision to allow testimony from two other women who accused Trump of sexual misconduct. His lawyers argue this propensity evidence unfairly prejudiced the jury, making it easier to believe Carroll's account. They also highlight the lack of physical evidence or eyewitnesses, calling Carroll's story uncorroborated and implausible. The legal team claims the jury's verdict was based on emotion, not fact, and that the trial process was fundamentally flawed. They argue the Second Circuit's decision conflicts with other federal courts on evidentiary rules, a circuit split that often draws Supreme Court attention. Trump's appeal frames the case as not just about him, but about clarifying national legal standards. The petition urges the Supreme Court to intervene and set a uniform rule for similar cases. The stakes extend beyond the individuals involved, potentially reshaping civil trial standards nationwide. Carroll's legal team, led by Roberta Kaplan, insists the verdict is legally sound and the trial was fair. They argue the other women's testimony was properly admitted to show a pattern of behavior, not to attack Trump's character. Carroll's consistent testimony, corroboration from friends, and Trump's own deposition provided ample evidence for the jury. The lack of physical evidence, they say, is common in decades-old assault cases and shouldn't undermine the verdict. They dismiss Trump's claims of a circuit split as exaggerated, arguing the law was applied correctly. Carroll's team frames the Supreme Court petition as a delay tactic, not a matter of national legal importance. They urge the justices to deny review, letting the jury's decision stand. For them, the case is a straightforward example of justice served. The Supreme Court's job isn't to retry facts or re-examine the evidence presented at trial, but to determine whether a significant legal error occurred that could have affected the outcome. Its role is to interpret the Constitution and federal law, ensuring that justice is applied fairly and consistently across the country. The court hears only a small fraction of the thousands of petitions it receives each year, typically selecting cases with broad legal impact, national importance, or where lower courts have issued conflicting rulings. This selectivity means that every case the court takes on has the potential to shape American law for generations. In this case, Trump's lawyers argue that a circuit split exists on evidentiary rules, claiming that different federal courts have applied the law inconsistently. By highlighting this split, they hope to convince the justices that the case meets the court's strict criteria for review and deserves national attention. If the Supreme Court denies the petition, the $5 million verdict against Trump stands, and E. Jean Carroll secures a final, unassailable, legal victory. The case would be over, with no further appeals possible. But if the court agrees to hear the case, its decision could reshape national standards for what evidence is allowed in civil trials, potentially affecting countless future lawsuits and the way justice is administered in American courts. The presence of three Trump-appointed justices, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett, adds a layer of political intrigue and public scrutiny. Yet Supreme Court decisions often defy expectations, and justices are sworn to uphold the law, not personal loyalties. A ruling in Trump's favor could vacate the verdict and order a new trial, reopening the case and prolonging the legal battle. On the other hand, a denial would end the case for good, cementing the outcome. Whatever the outcome, the court's decision will set a precedent for future high-profile civil cases, influencing how similar disputes are handled for years to come. As the nation watches and waits, the justice's decision carries enormous weight, not just for the parties involved, but for the entire country, knowing its impact will be felt far beyond this single case. With Trump's petition filed, the Supreme Court must decide whether to hear the case, a process that could take months. If the court declines, Carroll receives the $5 million and the legal saga ends. If the court agrees to review, the case returns to the national spotlight, focusing on legal standards rather than the original allegations. The decision will have lasting repercussions for civil litigation and public accountability. A denial would be a victory for the Summer and Me Too movement. A reversal could reshape evidence rules nationwide. As of November 11, 2025, the final chapter remains unwritten. The Supreme Court's next move will determine the legacy of this landmark case.